We start with breaking news from the United Kingdom, where Prime Minister Boris Johnson has tested positive for COVID-19. The UK PM becomes the first head of state to contract the virus and is now in self-isolation, though Johnson has said that he will still lead the government during his quarantine. The Prime Minister has since put up a video on Twitter explaining what's happened. Here is an extract.
Right at the beginning. Hi folks, I want to bring you up to speed with something that's happening today, which is that I've developed mild symptoms of the coronavirus, that's to say a temperature and a persistent cough. And on the advice of the chief medical officer, I've taken a test that has come out positive. So I am working from home, I'm self-isolating, and that's entirely the right thing to do. But be in no doubt that I can continue, thanks to the wizardry of modern technology, to communicate with all my top team to lead the national fight back against coronavirus.
For more on this breaking story, we cross over to the United Kingdom, where France 24's Catherine Nicholson is standing by. Hello, Catherine. Thank you very much for joining us. What's the latest from number 10 Downing Street?
Well, as we just saw there in that clip, Simon, you can see that the British Prime Minister staying fairly upbeat in that message to the nation, but I think it can be said looking somewhat tired. Boris Johnson is 55 years old, so he's in one of the age groups that's seen as being a little bit more at risk of having the more severe symptoms of coronavirus. He said that he had started experiencing what he called mild symptoms on Thursday, which were a high temperature and a persistent cough. Those are the symptoms that doctors have been telling us repeatedly really are the hallmarks of COVID-19. And following his test, after those symptoms came up, he has tested a positive. So as you heard, he said that he is going to keep leading the nation. He can stay in contact with his team, even though he is self-isolating in his residence. He also, as part of that message, paid tribute to medical staff at the National Health Service here in the United Kingdom, as well as teachers, police, and the 600,000 people who've signed up to be volunteers for the National Health Service amid this crisis.
And Catherine, you've just said he looked upbeat in the video, but is this a big blow for Boris Johnson and for the UK government, who, of course, a week ago hadn't even imposed a lockdown despite warning signs from mainland Europe?
Indeed, just a matter of days ago, Boris Johnson was live on television giving a briefing to the nation about coronavirus, where he said that he was still shaking hands with people who had been confirmed as having coronavirus. He said that you simply need to wash your hands a little bit more often. As we know, on Monday of this week, Boris Johnson then drastically changed the United Kingdom's response, bringing it much more closely in line with that of France, for example, telling people that they really must stay at home now unless it is absolutely essential to go out. Reasons including going to undertake essential work, going for essential medical visits, but really encouraging people as much as possible to stay home. It ought to be said, Boris Johnson himself has not been following that advice of staying home. The British Parliament was up and running until the close of play on Wednesday this week. Boris Johnson attended Prime Minister's questions with, as we know, many members of Parliament in the House of Commons around him. He also has been speaking and in close contact with his ministers. Perhaps they themselves might be tested now that he has been tested positive for this. We know that the British Health Minister was tested positive for COVID-19 just a couple of weeks ago as well. As you said, Boris Johnson is now the most high-profile political leader in the world to have tested positive for coronavirus. And this does raise questions about what would happen if he were to get more severe symptoms, be unable to work. We've been told that his foreign minister, Dominic Raab, is ready and waiting, if needed, to step into his shoes. But as we saw at this point, Boris Johnson says he is continuing on with his work.
Catherine Nicholson, live from the United Kingdom. Thank you so much for joining us here in the studio.